Welcome. Today we're undertaking an intense exploration of an artist who really defies any simple categorization.
Absolutely.
We're talking about an artist who wasn't just a singer, but you could argue was one of the great brand strategists in modern entertainment.
For sure.
Kenneth Donald Rogers, known to the world, of course, as Kenny Rogers. We've got a really extensive body of material in front of us that documents his journey, a journey that spanned, what, 6 decades?
At least. And our goal here is to get past just the hits that everyone knows and really look at the mechanics of his celebrity. We want to conduct a really in-depth examination of how he did it.
Right.
How did Rogers achieve that massive sustained success across so many genres, from jazz to psychedelic rock, all the way to country pop, and, specifically how his business decisions leveraged that fame into some really surprising ventures. We're tracing the evolution of an icon who was just defined by adaptability.
And as we begin this, we have to start by acknowledging the man himself with respect. Kenny Rogers passed away on March 20, 2020. He was 81 years old.
He was at home in Sandy Springs, Georgia, under hospice care. A life that, it just left an undeniable mark on global culture.
It really did. And you can feel the magnitude of the legacy we're about to explore. His passing really did mark the end of an extraordinary run.
And the numbers alone are just staggering. Rogers sold well over 100 million records worldwide. That makes him one of the best-selling music artists of all time.
It's an incredible figure.
But the truly unique feat, I think, the one that really defines his strategic brilliance, is his omnipresence, the way he was everywhere, across all these different markets. In the U.S., he topped both the pop and country album charts for over 200 individual weeks.
Wow.
So his dominance wasn't just a flash in the pan, it was continuous.
That kind of commercial range is just wild. He charted, more than 120 hit singles across 5 core genres.
At least 5, yeah. Jazz, folk, pop, rock, and country.
That sort of multi-genre saturation is almost unheard of for any artist, let alone one who starts his career in the late 1950s and is still relevant in the 2000s.
Absolutely. And you have to think about the industry at the time. The walls between genres were so high. To be accepted as a major star in Nashville, while at the same time being a constant presence on top 40 pop radio in New York and LA in the 70s and 80s, that required a very deliberate sort of middle-of-the-road sound that was commercially safe but still compelling.
And that whole journey, starting from a poverty-stricken background in Houston through all that early experimentation and then into the role of a successful entrepreneur, that's the story we need to track.
That's the one.
Okay, let's start unpacking this whole evolution. We'll begin with Kenneth Donald Rogers, born August 25, 1938 in Houston, Texas. He was the 4th of 8 children.
That's right. His mother, Lucille Lois Rogers, was a nurse's assistant, and his father, Edward Floyd Rogers, was a carpenter. The source material paints a really vivid picture of, extreme financial hardship.
It seems like his background was genuinely humble, right? He grew up in the federal housing projects in Houston.
He did, and he was never shy about discussing that financial strain. He often told a story about his father, a hardworking man, that the most he ever brought home was about $75 a week.
For a family of 10.
For a family of 10,
Yeah.
just barely enough. And you can see how that early experience would instill a really strong drive for, commercial success and stability later on.
He also detailed the difficult living conditions. I remember him reflecting that while he didn't think he was ever truly hungry, because there was always something to eat.
Right.
He did say, and I'm quoting here, "There's no question that our family was nutritionally deprived at times." He remembered eating just endless peanut butter sandwiches.
And yet, what stands out is that despite all of that, he prioritized his education. He graduated from Jefferson Davis High School in 1956.
He did, and he was proud of it. He later said on the Phil Donahue Show that he was the first person in his entire family, as far back as we know, to graduate from high school. That ambition to rise above his circumstances, it's clear even back then.
It absolutely is. And that ambition translates immediately into his career strategy. His recording career starts remarkably early. It shows that hunger to break through.
So what was the first group?
In the mid-50s, he was with a Houston-based doo-wop group called The Scholars. They released a track called The Poor Little Doggy. It was, pure regional rock and roll in that post-Elvis era.
And he even managed to score a minor solo rock and roll hit, right? In 1957.
He did, with a song called That Crazy Feeling. But here's the first sign of that crucial adaptability we talked about. When the sales for that rock single started to dry up, he didn't just stick with a failing formula. He pivoted hard. He went straight into the jazz scene.
He joined the jazz group at the Bobby Doyle 3, playing stand-up bass and singing. They were even good enough to get signed by Columbia Records.
And this move is so essential to understanding him, because unlike rock and roll, which was all about this, ephemeral youth culture, jazz clubs provided steady, reliable work.
A paying gig.
A paying gig. It helped him sharpen his instrumental skills, his stage presence. It was the complete antithesis of a fleeting rock hit. It offered security and longevity, something I suspect that young man who grew up with nothing really valued.
But the jazz period didn't bring him national fame either, so the experimentation just continued.
It did. After a brief, failed attempt at a jazzy rock single for Mercury in '66, he made his biggest stylistic jump yet. He moved into folk music.
In 1966, he joins the established folk ensemble, the New Christie Minstrels, again focusing on vocals and bass.
And this is a classic move, right? Join an established institution to learn the national touring ropes. But that institutional folk sound of the Minstrels was just too restrictive for some of the members.
Including Rogers.
He recognized the tides were shifting in 1967. He felt they needed a more contemporary sound. So he and several others, Mike Settle, Terry Williams, and Thelma Camacho, they left the Minstrels and founded the first edition in 1967. They added Kinvasi a bit later.
And this is where the genius of musical timing really comes in. Their debut sound wasn't folk, it wasn't country.
Not at all. It was full-blown fuzz guitar, West Coast psychedelic rock.
And they score their first major smash with Just Dropped In to see what condition my condition was in. It peaked at number 5 on Billboard and just defined that late 60s experimentation.
The contrast is just jarring, isn't it? A guy who started with doo-wop and jazz standards is now singing this abstract poetry over swirling psychedelic guitars. It speaks volumes about his willingness to follow commercial success, no matter the genre purity.
And you mentioned the enduring legacy of that track, right? Its use in The Big Lebowski.
That's right. The fact that it was used 20 years later just shows the timeless quality of that production, even if Rogers himself moved away from that style very quickly.
And that move happened fast. After the success of another track in 1969, the narrative-driven Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town, Rogers took a stronger leadership role in the band.
He did, and they began a very calculated genre shift. Again, this time moving definitively toward a country feel.
This internal shift within the first edition, it feels like the real prologue to his solo career.
It absolutely is. Tracks like Tell It All, Brother, Reuben James, Something's Burning, they had a softer production, cleaner instruments, and they really emphasized that storytelling component over the psychedelic noise.
And that move captured the growing interest in country rock in the early 70s.
And it solidified the narrative voice that would become the cornerstone of his entire global brand.
By 1975 or 76, that era was over. The first edition disbanded. Rogers had now tested the waters in rock, folk, jazz, and a country hybrid. He learned what worked: intimate storytelling, delivered by a compelling visual presence. He was now perfectly positioned to launch the solo career that would make him a household name. So Rogers signs with United Artists in 1976 and launches his solo career. And he had a very clear mission, it seems.
Very clear.
To develop a sound that the sources accurately call middle of the road. This wasn't an accident. It was specifically engineered to appeal to both the powerful country radio market and the much larger pop audience. At the same time,
a feat few artists of that era could truly master. The strategic alignment began immediately. He partnered with producer Larry Butler, and that relationship provided the sonic continuity for those first 4 pivotal years of his solo success.
And Butler specialized in that polished, almost cinematic country sound.
Exactly. While his first self-titled album had some minor hits, the foundation was being very carefully laid.
Then, in 1977, came the breakthrough. The single Lucille. This wasn't just a hit.
No, it was an international phenomenon. It hit number 1 in 12 countries, sold over 5 million copies globally.
Lucille wasn't just about the numbers, though. It cemented his identity, didn't it? It established that bearded, slightly melancholic, relatable, working-class storyteller persona that the global audience was just ready to embrace.
And that persona led directly to the lyrical narrative that would define him forever. The Gambler.
Released in 1978.
It wasn't just a massive crossover success. It quickly became a cultural touchstone. It earned him a Grammy in 1980 for Best Male Country Vocal Performance.
But the truly insightful piece here is its longevity and critical recognition.
Absolutely. The Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the National Recording Registry in 2018, noting its cultural, historic, and aesthetic significance.
The significance of the song's narrative is just paramount here. The wisdom in the song, you got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. It resonated so far beyond music fans. It became a maxim, a piece of American folk wisdom.
Right.
And the sources point out that the album The Gambler itself was listed in a poll of the 200 most influential country albums ever. This success wasn't fleeting. It redefined the entire country pop genre boundary.
And this is where we see his brilliance as a brand strategist just shine. Rogers realized the persona was more valuable than just the song.
He didn't just sing The Gambler.
He became the character. He leveraged this one piece of music into a visual media empire.
So was translating a hit song into a film or a TV series a common strategy back in 1980, or was this a pretty big risk?
It was a calculated risk that paid off spectacularly. And that's because the narrative was so strong and his visual presence was so safe and comforting on network TV.
So they didn't just make one movie.
They launched a successful Emmy-nominated series of television films, starting with Kenny Rogers as the Gambler in 1980. This turned the musical character Brady Hawks into a fully realized screen personality. And crucially, this allowed him to sell records to people who never listened to country radio, but who watch TV westerns. He broadened his demographic vertically, not just horizontally.
And he didn't stop there. He was really committed to developing an acting career. He took the title role in the McShane series for the NBC mystery movie. And he proved his box office mettle with the 1982 feature film Six Pack, where he played a race car driver who mentors 6 orphans.
And Six Pack is a perfect example of his ability to choose material that fit that established, gentle, mentoring gambler archetype, even when the setting changed to racing. The film made over $20 million at the U.S. box office.
Which, for 1982, was a significant success for a crossover music star.
It absolutely was. It just affirmed that the audience wasn't just buying the music, they were buying him, that reassuring figure in the beard and denim. His capacity to market that visual, trustworthy persona is what guaranteed his enduring celebrity status. So if the gambler persona was the foundation of his success, then his strategic use of collaboration was the architecture. The source material is just unequivocal on this. Rogers was the undisputed king of the musical duet.
He was constantly using partnerships to navigate and conquer new genres.
Constantly.
His first pivotal collaboration started in the late 1970s with Dottie West. And this wasn't just about singing together, was it? This was a strategic move to solidify his credentials within the Nashville establishment after all that pop crossover success.
Exactly. Dottie West was pure country royalty, and their success was immediate and profound. Albums like Every Time Two Fools Collide and Classics earned them 2 gold records and consecutive CMA awards for Vocal Duo of the Year in '78 and '79.
And they didn't just sell records, they filled stadiums, touring together for several years.
They did. Their key hits, Every Time Two Fools Collide, What Are We Doing in Love, and All I Ever Need Is You, were all chart toppers that gave Rogers an authenticity he might have otherwise lacked after his, psychedelic rock past.
It's powerful that Rogers himself acknowledged her crucial role in anchoring his career. He often said that Dottie West sang with such emotion that you actually believed what she sang. And he credited her with cementing his connection to country audiences. That mutual respect was genuine. The sources note he was actually with her just hours before she died after that devastating car accident in 1991.
And he later starred as himself in the biographical film about her life, Big Dreams and Broken Hearts, the Dottie West story.
Which shows how deep that connection ran.
It does. Then, moving into the 1980s, his attention shifted strategically. He wanted absolute dominance in the pop world, and that led to the monumental partnership with Lionel Richie.
This was a masterstroke of cross-market positioning. In 1980, Lionel Richie, who was still mostly known for the funk and R&B of the Commodores, wrote and produced Rogers' signature ballad, Lady.
Lady was just huge. It spent 6 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 pop charts. It was the biggest hit of Rogers' career at that point.
So what did Richie specifically bring to the production of Lady that made it such a powerful pop crossover? What made it different from his other country hits?
Pure sophistication. Unlike the slightly rougher, story-driven production of the Larry Butler era, Richie delivered a lush orchestral arrangement that was completely devoid of traditional country signifiers.
No steel guitar.
No steel guitar, just sweeping strings and piano. The song's structure, its tempo, were all designed for adult contemporary and pop radio. This wasn't a country artist trying to sound pop. This was a pop mastermind. Ritchie crafting the perfect vehicle for Rogers' warm vocal tone.
And the collaboration went deeper than that one single.
It did. Ritchie produced Rogers' 1981 chart-topping album Share Your Love, which had hits like the soft rock smash I Don't Need You, which hit #3 on the pop charts.
And it wasn't a one-way street either. The relationship was reciprocal. Rogers sang backing vocals on Ritchie's solo top 5 hit, My Love.
It showed a genuine artistic bond, and they reinforced it when they reunited in 2012 to re-record Lady for Ritchie's album Tuskegee.
Which brings us to what many people consider the definitive collaboration, 1983, involving the production powerhouse of Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees and, of course, the iconic pairing with Dolly Parton.
That's right. Gibb produced the entire album Eyes That See in the Dark.
And the lead single from that album, Islands in the Stream, is legendary. But I was genuinely surprised by what the source material revealed about its origins.
Oh, yeah.
The Bee Gees, Barry, Robin, and Maurice, they originally wrote the song not for a country artist, but for the R&B legend Diana Ross.
It's true. They had tailored the rhythm and the vocal line for her voice, and they intended it for an R&B album. But when Rogers heard the song, he and Barry Gibb realized it had that strong narrative core that was necessary for a country pop duet.
And its tempo was perfect for his cadence.
Perfect. Barry Gibb adapted the production, keeping the sophisticated pop structure, but softening the edge for a general audience. The magic, though, happened when Dolly Parton arrived. She provided that necessary emotional and stylistic counterpoint to Rogers' controlled delivery.
And the significance of that one track for the entire industry is just enormous. Islands in the Stream was the first country single to reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 pop chart since 1980.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker that shows its power. It remained the last country single to achieve that ultimate crossover status for 17 years.
17 years, until Lone Star's Amazed broke the drought in 2000. That one single basically defines the height of the country pop crossover era that he helped pioneer.
And he just kept the collaborations flowing, treating them as essential vehicles for maintaining his pop relevance.
Later in '83, he covered Bob Seger's We've Got Tonight with Sheena Easton. Produced by David Foster, one of the premier pop producers of the era, he proved he could adapt to any producer's style and still maintain his vocal identity.
And that strategic approach got him more awards. A Grammy nomination for the 1984 trio performance, What About Me, with James Ingram and Kim Carnes.
And a crucial Grammy win in 1988 for Best Country Collaboration with Vocals for Make No Mistake, She's Mine with Ronnie Millsap. Collaboration wasn't just a fun sideline for him. It was the backbone of his diversification strategy. It proved he could work with R&B stars, pop titans, and country legends, all within the same decade.
So we've established that Rogers was a brilliant musical strategist, but the narrative is truly incomplete if we don't investigate the sheer scope of his business ventures.
It really is.
He successfully converted the trust and relatability of his musical persona, the gambler, into multiple, massive, non-musical businesses.
And that ability to transition from a sensitive balladeer to a hard-nosed CEO is just remarkable. The most famous example, of course, is the restaurant chain Kenny Rogers Roasters.
He co-founded that in 1991 with John Y. Brown Jr., who had previously been the CEO of KFC. That partnership was highly intentional, wasn't it?
Very. Brown brought the fast food scale experience, and Rogers brought the brand recognition and that association with comfortable home-style food.
They specialized in wood-fired rotisserie chicken and ribs. The idea was to capitalize on the growing health consciousness trend by providing a lower-fat alternative to fried chicken. And while Roasters became a piece of pop culture history, famously featured in that Seinfeld episode, The Chicken Roaster, that media portrayal often overshadowed the actual business strategy.
Yes, and the domestic fate of the company was ultimately disappointing. The sources confirmed that the TV show Fresh Off the Boat later depicted its bankruptcy in the U.S. market, but that failure was localized. The true business success story, which is often overlooked, is in Asia. Rogers and Brown successfully expanded the chain internationally, and today, Kenny Rogers Roaster stores are still major fixtures in countries like Malaysia, the Philippines, and China.
So they mastered the international franchise model, even if the U.S. operation faltered under competition from brands like Boston Market?
Exactly.
But the Gambler brand wasn't just limited to poultry. Another highly focused business venture tied directly to his most iconic song was the Gambler Chassis Co.
This was not a novelty item.
Oh.
This was a serious sprint car racing manufacturer, founded by C.K. Spurlock in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and named explicitly after the song.
What's so fascinating about Gambler Chassis Co. is that Rogers wasn't just licensing his name, he was invested in a niche, high-performance manufacturing industry.
A very demanding one. Sprint cars are specialized race vehicles, and during the 1980s and 90s, Gambler chassis were industry leaders. They were consistently recognized as among the fastest and most widely used sprint cars on the circuit.
They were the vehicles of choice for champions. Drivers like Steve Kinzer, who is often considered the greatest sprint car driver of all time, he drove Gambler Chassis to victory. So did Sammy Swindell in the highly competitive World of Outlaws series.
And this venture just proves his business reach extended far beyond traditional entertainment licensing. It touched a genuine American subculture dirt track racing that resonated perfectly with that gambler archetype.
Furthermore, Rogers leveraged his musical success not just through commercial ventures, but by owning the infrastructure of the industry itself.
That's right. After a series of hit albums, he invested his earnings very wisely. In 1981, he bought the old ABC Dunhill building in Los Angeles and established Lionshare Studios.
Tell me more about Lionshare Studios. Was it just a personal space for him, or did it become a major player in the LA recording scene?
It was a huge player. He completely rebuilt the facility, installing state-of-the-art equipment and acoustics. Lionshare was quickly recognized as one of the most popular and technically advanced recording facilities in Los Angeles during the 80s.
So producers loved it.
They loved it for its excellent isolation and secure environment. It was built specifically for large-scale, high-fidelity recording projects, and it drew top talent who needed the best possible sound quality.
And the studio's history really speaks to its quality. We know that Lionshare holds a unique place in history because it was one of the two primary locations used to record that massive 1985 charity single, We Are the World.
Dozens of the era's biggest stars converged there.
And that choice was not accidental, was it?
Not at all. Lionel Richie and Quincy Jones chose Lionshare because it offered the technical capability needed for such a massive multi-artist project, plus the necessary security and centralized location. Rogers provided the industry with a high-quality venue, and that generated revenue and credibility that went far beyond his own recording output for a time.
And beyond music and commerce, the sources highlight his deep interest in visual arts. Photography became a serious obsession and a passion project for him.
He authored two successful photo books in the late 80s, Kenny Rogers' America in 1986 and Your Friends and Mine in 1987. They really showcased his eye for capturing Americana and portraiture.
This attention to visual media continued when he transitioned into historical narration.
It did. From 1991 to 1994, he leveraged that trustworthy voice and persona to serve as the host and narrator for the A&E historical series, The Real West.
And that show, which focused on the history of the American West, later found a second life in reruns on the History Channel. Again, just proving his ability to resonate in non-musical media spaces.
Right.
And finally, just to humanize this strategic genius, we get this brief but delightful window into his private life in his 2012 memoir, Luck, or something like it. The sources reveal one of his most unique personal habits.
The pet goat.
Keeping a pet goat named Smitty at his former estate in Colbert, Georgia.
It's a wonderful anecdote that just cuts through that business titan image. Rogers describes Smitty the goat as his center, a grounding presence. He found that after all the high stress of touring and business negotiations, the simple, demanding attention of the animal provided a calming influence. It proves that even a global icon needs a way to decompress and reconnect with simplicity.
Despite building multiple businesses and conquering film and television, Rogers never abandoned his first love, music. His late career successes really prove that his appeal was truly enduring. It spanned well past the peak of the country pop movement in the 80s and into the new millennium.
His ability to adapt to a changing industry while maintaining his distinct vocal style is highly impressive. In the year 2000, at 61 years old, his single Buy Me a Rose returned him to the #1 spot on the country charts.
And this wasn't just a win, it was a record-breaking moment.
It was. In doing so, he surpassed Hank Snow's 26-year-old record for the oldest artist to score a #1 hit on the country charts.
Holding a chart record like that, even temporarily, Willie Nelson later broke it in 2003, is just a powerful testament to his continued relevance. He proved the gambler could still capture the country audience's attention despite the rise of younger, more contemporary artists.
And that momentum carried right through the next decade. His 2006 album, Water and Bridges, was a commercial success. It charted highly on the country charts and made a strong showing in the top 15 of the Billboard 200 overall.
And the single I Can't Unlove You from that album stayed on the hit list for over 6 months. which shows he was still connecting on a really significant scale.
He was.
By the 2010s, the full scope of his career was being formally recognized by the industry he had done so much to shape. In 2013, he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame.
A necessary honor, really, given his pioneering role in the genre's crossover appeal. And fittingly, that same year, he received the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award, connecting him publicly with one of the few other artists whose career spans such diverse eras and maintained such broad appeal. It was a well-deserved double recognition.
His popularity wasn't just industry-driven, it was public. We have data from the height of his fame showing his incredible public adoration. Back in 1986, readers of both USA Today and People magazine voted him the favorite singer of all time.
Wow.
Throughout his career, he amassed numerous American Music Awards, Grammy Awards, and Country Music Association Awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2003. It reflects a career that spanned 6 decades of constant contribution.
However, that relentless touring schedule that had defined his career, it inevitably took its toll. In 2015, he announced his final major tour, appropriately titled The Gambler's Last Deal.
And his intention was clear, to retire from the road because of accumulating health problems.
The health challenges, unfortunately, continued. The sources confirmed that this included a diagnosis of bladder cancer. Ultimately, doctors' advice forced him to definitively cancel all his remaining 2018 tour dates.
This brought his extensive touring career to a final, definitive close a couple of years before his death.
And the documentation of his final public performance serves as a really powerful capstone to his career. That event took place in Nashville on October 25, 2017 at the Bridgestone Arena. It wasn't just a concert, it was an industry salute.
The roster of guest artists performing, Chris Stapleton, Reba McEntire, Lionel Richie, Chris Christopherson, it just demonstrated the extent of his influence across generations and genres.
It did.
And the conclusion of that night was deeply emotional and, fittingly, featured his longtime creative partner, Dolly Parton.
She performed her signature song, I Will Always Love You, for him. And then they reunited on stage to perform 2 of their collaborations, You Can't Make Old Friends, and, perfectly, Islands in the Stream, for the very last time in front of an audience.
As we mentioned, Rogers passed away about 2.5 years after that final bow on March 20, 2020. He was 81. He was at his home in Sandy Springs, Georgia.
Under hospice care. He was married to Wanda Miller for 22 years until his death, and they shared twin sons. We offer our genuine sympathy for the loss experienced by his family. So if you look across the entirety of this journey, from the earliest days in a Houston housing project to launching high-tech studios and high-performance racing businesses, Rogers' legacy is ultimately defined by his unmatched shrewdness and adaptability. He navigated seamlessly between jazz, fuzzy psychedelic rock, sophisticated pop, and country, maintaining continuous relevance for 6 decades. And he was always backed by his consistent touring band, Bloodline, which played with him since 1976.
It is truly a masterclass in brand management and creative evolution. The Gambler became the ultimate multi-purpose brand identity.
It did.
It launched a profitable film franchise, inspired a leading manufacturer of the high-stakes sprint car industry, and it anchored his musical legacy for preservation by the Library of Congress. The ability of one song to transcend its musical origins and become a multi-platform identity is just astonishing.
It really is, and it raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider. We've seen how Rogers succeeded not by adhering to one genre or one sound, but by understanding the universal appeal of a relatable narrative delivered with impeccable production.
Right?
So what does it tell us about consumer trust and the power of a consistent persona? That a single lyric, know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, could launch parallel, successful careers in music, film, and motorsports. The power of narrative branding, particularly in the hands of a strategic mind like Kenny Rogers, is truly the key to his lasting success.
Thanks for listening.